Hello, my beautiful people, and welcome to yet another episode of Rise to More. I'm always excited to have the greats. As you know, on this show, we have the greats, people who are doing absolutely remarkable things in our community, who are changing the fabric of our society and inspiring all of us to show up for the betterment of humanity. But today is even more special because this is the first time I've had someone that my whole family is going to literally be just jumping up and down about, and because of a personal story that we have that I will share shortly. There's a version of this story that ends at the World Cup. Boy from St. Paul plays the beautiful game, makes it to the biggest stage in the world, lives well, the end, but that's not his story. This is a story of what happens when someone reaches the top and realizes the view from there comes with a responsibility that they can't ignore. Tony Sanneh is one of the greatest soccer players the state has ever produced. He played in the World Cup, he won championships, and he had everything that the world tell you should want. And then he came home and started building something that had nothing to do with trophies or fame. Today, the Sanneh Foundation mentors over 1,000 students, feeds families, trains young people for careers, and operates a dome on the east side of St. Paul that Tony built from scratch so the kids who can't afford the price of admissions can come and play. This is a conversation for me about what it really costs to build something meaningful, and about the fear that people don't talk about what success feels from the inside. And I think about what it means to lead in a way that absolutely outlasts you and creates a change for generations to come. Tony, welcome to Rise Some More.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here and excited.
You are excited. I am like jumping up and down. And my family back home are like hardcore soccer fans. And I mean, they're football fans. We say football back
Yes.
home. And when I told my brother, that you're coming on the show, he's like, you have celebrity coming on the show. This is like such a really big deal, a huge deal. I just, from all of the things that you're doing, and I know that you're doing some really, really impactful things, I just want to say that I'm really, really thankful that you took the time to come and talk to me here today. I
Well,
really
I'm
appreciate
honored. I put my name on everything, so the people at my office say so. I'm honored that I have a chance to come and meet you and share my story, and I've seen some of the other guests. So just to be included in that and appreciate it makes me feel really good, and we hope we can keep sharing our story and passing on the good fortune around the community.
I love that. Well, I want to take us back to the beginning, starting with St. Paul, and a little bit about before all of the things that have happened in your career and all of the accomplishments. Do you remember what young Tony wanted back then?
You know what? Well, I wanted to smile and play. I remember, when I was 6 years old, I went to visit my family, my dad's family in West Africa, the Gambia. But I remember, I snuck home to take artifacts to show and tell because I wanted to, impress people. And I dragged stuff for 2 miles. And I was so excited, just to be a part of class on the playground. And I remember that I was really excited in the first grade to go to school. Just because I liked being around others and being a happy kid. And then, later on in life, my mom, we'll talk about how we didn't have a lot of money and we were really poor. And she's like, I don't know how you two were so happy. We had nothing and you made it really easy for me and not guilty because we didn't have all the things. And, he goes, it was always enough. And you two always found a way to, play and be happy. So I think I was a happy kid. I like to play games and competitive and a little bit mischievous.
Just a little bit.
Just a little.
I have one of those. And he is the just such an incredible soul. But I feel like you have to sometimes have that in order to create some of the things that you have created in the world. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, you have to test boundaries and limits and learn from that, right? And you don't get up unless you fall down. And like my son right now, he's 15 going on 16 months, and he knows already. So like we're at the park and he'll pick a wood chip up and I know he's not going to eat it, and he'll put it in his mouth just to wait to see what I say. And he'll look at me and I'll look at him, and then he smiles. And when he smiles, everyone was like, okay, he's smiling just like you. Like he knows, right? He's just playing with you, right? And then he throws it away. So
Well, I look forward to seeing
yeah,
what he does then.
yeah,
I love that
yeah,
spirit. There's so many things that I want to talk about today that are so, like I mentioned to the audience, close to my
yeah.
heart, and why I'm really excited to talk to you today. It's personal for me on so many levels. But I want to go back to, again, you truly are an incredible soccer star, and you've played in the World Cup in 2002. And I'm curious, take us back to that moment when you were, just like with our national anthem, what was going through your mind in that moment?
Well, I talk about it a lot. Like it's one of the best experiences. Your family's there, and a lot of people that came to the World Cup, and they all had 22 replica jerseys. So in a stadium with 60,000 people, you can't see, but when there's a section where they're all turn around and they're with 22, you know where your family's sitting. Um, but then just during the national anthem, you're worried. The 6 months before the World Cup, every day you wake up and you say, "Don't get hurt, don't get hurt, don't get hurt," and then you're there, and you know that like you just have to make it through the song and not get hurt, and you're gonna play in the World Cup. And then you start thinking about the World Cup, what it means, and like every single person in the world is, that's watching soccer is watching this game right now, and you're representing your country. And then all the people that helped me along the way that was telling somebody, remember that kid I bought a pair of shoes for? Remember that kid? It was kind of my way of paying them back, because they could say, like, it was all worth it, right? My investment paid off in this person. And so I really felt like we celebrated that moment together.
You talk about that a lot. There's a saying, "To whom much is given, much is expected," and you really have come to live that. And you're single-handedly, I believe, leading a way to change, I think, the tapestry of our community. And we're going to get into that, but it takes recognizing that we have been given or we have been supported, and to be able to then give back in a different way. I was just watching a few weeks ago. I'm originally from Bosnia. Bosnia qualified for the World Cup and beat Italy. Italy is out for the third time in a row. And I was telling you, 100,000 people came out on the streets for Bosnia's history, the war, the genocide. And it was so meaningful. I want to ask you, in your observation, particularly football, soccer, the power of it to connect and unify people. What have you witnessed in playing and in that interaction? There's nothing like soccer fans. They're crazy, and they're just and you played in Germany, and
Yes.
Germans are just insane about soccer.
Yes.
So what was your experience with the energy of the game?
Well, they call it the beautiful game for a reason. It's the only sport that known that there's been treaties during wars to play soccer games.
I love that.
You can go anywhere in the world, sit down with a stranger that you don't even speak the same language, and you can look at the TV and watch a game, and you might not be able to say anything, but you can look at that person, smile, and give a thumbs up, and get a new friend instantly. Um, it is, it's something that you can play your whole life as long as you're playing with people in similar ability. It connects cultures. There's this creative thing about it. I think soccer for the rest of the world is sort of like college football in America. Like where you come from never changes. So your loyalties to that team is forever. You can't move cities. You can't change loyalties. Like if you're German, it's the German national team, right? The Bosnian national team, the U.S. national team. So your heart is going to go up and down, with their success or failure. And you're going to feel for them a little bit when they don't succeed. And it's going to be personal because that's part of who you are. And when they win, it's a celebration because it really means something everyone came together to make happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really beautiful. Well, my brother kept reporting in Bosnia, no one went to work for 3 days. It was, and no one cared
Yeah.
because it was that much a big of a deal.
Right.
I want to ask you, you are our first professional, world-known, renowned, and respected athlete in the studio. So I'm like really giddy with excitement. In terms of getting to that level of fame, when you were in Germany, I know you were unbelievably popular. And what is an identity adjustment to go from playing just soccer to becoming recognized on the street? I mean, to becoming famous, to having a little swag, to having power, influence. I'm curious, like, what went through your mind? Was there like a really big adjustment, or was it just no big deal?
Well, I would say like for my whole life, people mix me up because, they say I'm such a down to earth person. I respect everybody. Um, what people don't really understand is like my job is to make you understand that me and you are equal people, but that doesn't mean I don't think I can kick your ass, right? So all professional athletes have a really high confidence because you have to compete, but doesn't mean that you're not um, human and understand the humanity of and understand that doesn't make you any better as a person, right? So I would say that I always had a lot of swag internally, right? There was always something that pushed me. My mom tells me a story when I was 4 years old, and I was worried about what I was going to become. And she said she hugged me and held me for 30 seconds and told me I could be whatever I want. And I remember the story. She said, I looked up at her and I said, really? And she said, absolutely, whatever you want. And she said, for the next 3 days, I marched around the house saying that I'm going to do whatever I want. And I changed from basketball player to being a king and so internally, I always thought I was special, even though I don't know what I was special at. But I knew I was special because my mom made me feel special. So I always had swag through high school, through college, playing sports, but was very down to earth. I think, once I was in Germany was the first time where you know, other people thought I had more swag than I thought, right? When you go to restaurants, your bills being paid, people start taking care of you. And, I remember one time I was watching a game with my friend and I was like, hey, can you get me a glass of water? And he looked at me and he's like, are your legs broken? And I'd gotten so used to people just doing stuff for me because they just offered, and that was what it was, being like in that celebrity. I almost forgot that like that's not normal, but it became an expectation. So I say athletes don't change; the people around change, and sometimes that changes us. But it's been really good that I have friends like that kept me grounded and understanding that hey, that doesn't matter. Like you're still my friend, and go get your own water.
I love that. That's a very a good way of
Yeah.
recontextualizing. I'm curious, what your mom said you can be anything you want. I mean, I have two boys and I tell them the same thing. I'm curious, do you think that we are born with a particular dharma, sort of a destiny that we're supposed to follow? And I ask because very often with a lot of the greats, you can tell in the early ages there's something different about them, or they have a very different view of the world, or they just show up very differently in the world.
It's interesting you say that. I had lunch with somebody today, and they kind of looked at me and they said, you're different, right?" And I was like, I mean, I'm competitive. I like what I do, and he was like, well, he goes, one, there's not very many people that reach what you've done and gone to do this, and two, this the drive, and I said maybe, but I guess in high school I realized I the rest of the world didn't look at the world the same way I did, um, and I always felt special, so I knew I was, let's just say, different or had that swag. Um, but my life's been, in some sense biblical, in some sense a story. I won a 1 in 6 million lottery to Pele soccer camp at age 10,
Oh, wow.
right? And I tell the story as my mom wouldn't let me go because she signed me up for yoga camp. So the camp was New York, Cosmos. So they said you can go a week later to this guy Franz Beckenbauer soccer camp. 20 years later, my first professional game in Germany, the president of that soccer club was Franz Beckenbauer.
Oh my
So you look
gosh.
at things that go, full circle. And so when you say it's destiny, I do believe I'm special, and I do believe I'm here for a purpose. And somebody was like today, I'm like, it's not a job, it's a lifestyle. And so I'm glad my son gets to grow up this way, and hopefully he'll get raised and this will be normal for him too.
Yeah, and there is a story of people who achieve the level of success, and they feel special and they're different, but they don't turn it around and give it back in the ways that you have. And that is something that I am just so in love with and so impressed with. So the reason why it's so personal for me that you're here, when I was new, my kids were 5 and 4. We were walking around as, the little kids. I'm always just chasing them in the neighborhood. And in one of the parks, all these kids were, kicking football and soccer ball. I'm going to go back and forth, confusing myself. And the Sanneh Foundation was there, and I inquired. It was this incredible camp, and my children are old. I showed you their pictures from there. It was one of the most beautiful things that I have experienced that early on, and that was their first interaction with the sport in that kind of an organized way. So I want to talk a little bit about Sanneh Foundation. You started the foundation while you were still playing. You were still a player. Most people wait to get over with that part of their life or career. What made you think at that point that this is really, I have to do this? It's important.
Well, it was right around the World Cup time. I'm like, wow, I have a responsibility. Like I'm different. Like there's never been someone like this from Minnesota. What can I bring back the responsibility? And at the same time, a young girl said, hey, can you help me with soccer camp? Because you seem pretty important. And I said, what do you need? And she says, well, I need some balls. And I'm like, well, I have an Adidas contract, so I can get you as many balls as you want. And she was like, the city just had a Tony Sanneh Day, so can you talk to them about letting me use the park? I'm like, yeah, I'll call the park for you. And they said yes. And then she said, I need some T-shirts and cones. And so I'm like, well, what is it going to cost? She said, $500. I said, yeah, we can do that. So she ran free soccer programming while she was in college at Concordia for the kids, and made this T-shirt that said Sanneh Soccer. And I was like, I really didn't do much. And if I can leverage what I am to do this, like that's going to really help. And so I'm like, okay, so then let me start the institution so I could do more. And so in early years, it was more donating. And then we did anti-racism training so more kids could play in a safe environment. And then when I finally retired, I had learned a lot, and I learned that actually I have a gift for programming. And so I said, this is making me happy. And I started to build, and, you go big or go home. So as I started to build, more people came, more people supported. And 15 years later, we have a $10 million budget and 110 employees, and we're doing a lot of really good work. And, I've met so many special people along the way. And just this last week, one of my mentees sent me an article. He's the lead on an architect project that won a $40,000 award, and he's getting his master's in architect. And I'm like, 6 years ago, he was just out of college and here, and, we're pushing him, and, you fight like a child with him, and now you see him and he's just thankful, and you're like, yeah, it's easy to keep going when you know that not all the gratification is instant, and you have some people working with you, and, they don't always like you or learn or understand what you're providing today. But hopefully you're trying to provide a pathway of resources and tools so they'll be successful in the future.
It is remarkable to watch the evolution of your career, and then this it was almost not an identity, but a complete different way in which you show up in the world as a human being. And I know that you know this because people tell you every day, you see the impact of it. But what are some of those moments, I'm curious for you personally, where you feel like where you're fully in the awareness of the good that you have done in our community?
Well, when I see articles like that, when I see somebody's growth, um, I think last summer there was a really moving moment. I went down to the Rondo days, predominantly African American community, and the men there and the women there that were in the 70s and 80s, as I walked around, they were like, "That's the OG," and I was like, "How do you even know who I am?" And so to see that our elders that really thought of me as somebody that's an agent for change in the community, is special. And then when I go to training, like when I go to our staff training and I see, how many people sign up, giving a year of their life or more to do this work together, that makes it easy. A lot of times now I'm stuck behind the desk, or I'm out doing administrative stuff and helping with the vision, and I don't get to be in front of kids as much as I would like. When I am in front of my direct service staff and I hear what they're doing, it's so motivating. And I do travel with the State Department, so I'm going to Tajikistan this May. But that's another area where I get to do direct service work and work directly with kids, which is really my passion and keeps me motivated. And now I have a son, so I'm working every day. So
Never ending.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you this much later, but I really think it's almost pressing to ask now. What do you think your legacy is going to be?
They told me not to say them. So I think my legacy, that's a tough question. What I hope is that as I'm entering in the Hall of Fame, people realize what I did on the field and understand that he was a winner. He worked really hard. And I hope my legacy is that he led by example and invested in other people, and that the organization is sustainable. When people say, "What are you most proud of the organization?" It's not any one thing. I don't think people don't appreciate that 15 years later, every year we've gotten bigger and we're still here. Yeah. And we make budget, we keep people, and we're helping more kids. Sustainability is the biggest legacy that I can have. Anybody can build something. You saw how many nonprofits popped up during COVID, food rescues, and then somebody gets tired, burnt out, they stop, they move, it stops. Sustainability will be the biggest legacy if we can build something that will last forever.
Okay. Well, what do you credit with that level of sustainability? Is it the leadership? Is it the team? Is it your ability to connect with the people in the community? I'm curious because that is right. One of the things that our listeners, a lot of executives, leaders, business owners, politicians, want to rise to more. We want to build something that lasts, and very often we don't know how to do that. You have achieved just that. So I'm curious, what is your process? Why is it that you're having such incredible results, particularly, do you think?
I think trust. I think when you build, like I came in this understanding that I wanted to help. I made a diagram in 2003 of things I wanted to do. We've accomplished 10 to 11 out of the 12. So when people think, well, where did that come from? I'm like, 20 years ago, that's where it came from. Like it was in our vision. We just didn't talk about it 6 years before every day. And some of the things that we want to do are so big that it distracts from what we're currently doing. So that's also hard. But I think being authentic and like I said, when we came and started the organization and we said we want to do good, but we didn't know how, but these were going to be our values. We worked with the community to build something that actually helped people. We didn't say, we're going to come and fix you, right? We're going to say, we have these skills, we have these resources. How can we work together to make your life better? Mm-hmm. And so the trust is really the thing that's creating sustainability, because as long as there's participants, as long as kids are coming to our soccer camps, as long as people are coming and now calling, and now I took over the info email at the Sanneh Foundation, which is super great because I get like 10 emails a day asking for help or direction, which means people are hearing about us randomly, going to our website and just asking, where they can get support. And I get to connect them personally to the right department. So building that trust with the public is the key to sustainability, because there's need there,
Mm-hmm.
and this community will support where there's need if we're not wasting money, if we're authentic, and we make a lot of mistakes. But when we make mistakes, we own up to them, and people, know that we're not perfect. People want to work with real people that are going to be accountable, and have the public trust. And I think that's what we've built.
Well, you started off soccer in soccer camps. That was a doorway
Yep.
into this, but it really has evolved. The level of programs, the plethora of all
Yep.
the services that you offer, it goes to I feel like every nook and cranny of need that we have. And then you just mentioned this idea of like we have really big vision that can deter us from the things that we really want to do. So I'm curious, like the balance between those two things, because you're clearly a visionary and you're clearly someone who can execute at an incredible level and deliver results. So that push and pull between
Right.
I want to do bigger things, but here's our bread and butter, so to speak.
So it's not what, it's when. Okay, so I think that there's no reason to put a limit on something. It's just when will you be in the position? I was talking to someone on the Vikings, and they said, "You do all these things. Like, how do you do that?" And I'm like, "You have a stadium, a soccer team, a business team, and all." They're like, "Yeah, but we have this huge infrastructure." I said, "So what I hear you telling me is I need to build a better infrastructure to support all these things. The things aren't wrong. It's having the infrastructure to support them. So we want to do more. A lot of times we build programs to help others. I'll really go all in on a program if I think it's sustainable for 3 years. Because if I can build something and ramp it up for 3 years and make sure that it's not going to go away, I have real confidence that the public will see those results and invest in it for the long haul.
Yes.
So some of our biggest initiatives that we know that we want to do, it's just a matter of timing. And we're building the organization like a for-profit business. Like if there's something that we can do, and I always talk about my successor, and people say, "Well, what kind of person is going to succeed you?" I said, "There's really one quality that they need to do. They need to believe in our mission and one other thing. And our mission, like we only do one thing at the Sanneh Foundation. You might think we do a lot. The one thing we do is we respond to the needs of the community, and that changes, but it's the single thing that we do. The second thing that the person's going to that replaces me is going to do is always pick up the phone,
Yeah.
right? And you might not be able to answer their question, but we know somebody that can, or somebody that can help them directly, or one that can point them the wrong way. There is no excuse, I say. Has anyone ever asked you for directions on the street and you would just not answer? There's no reason not to. And just giving someone directions, you could save them hours, you could save them trouble. They may be picking up their pregnant wife. They may be late for their paycheck that's going to pay their rent. So those little actions can go a long way. And if you look at the multiply effect of everything, you really can make a positive difference with a lot of little things.
You have now, I'm curious, and I love that answer so much. And I'm wondering now for those people who are listening, want to do the story I hear over and over again. I want to do something great. I want to build something. And yet both men and women who are perfectly capable stop right before doing something and showing up, and they fall short of making themselves proud. So do you have any advice for someone who wants to build something meaningful and they just keep just really getting in their own way?
Well, one is meaningful needs to be meaningful to you and not to others. I think too often we try to build things in this society because we want to please others. And so when we want to do stuff, it's instead of thinking about what we want to do, we think what others will think. We think, will others like this? And so that creates doubt and fear. And so we should do things that we want to do and that we believe in. I think that gets in our way the most, right? And nobody's being judged for trying, right? Like I would say the only bad job is one that you didn't try. And if you do it, you tried. And you know what? Things happen, and you can't be at fault for trying. Soccer is a great example. When the two best teams in the world play, this is my favorite analogy. Let's just say Real Madrid and Barcelona, not maybe the two best teams, but two great teams play, because it's going to be a controversy. Every time one team gets the ball, the other team made a mistake. So how many times in a 90-minute time does the best team in the world make a mistake? Yet they keep playing.
A
right?
lot, yeah.
And nobody talks about how many mistakes they made during the game. They talk about all the good things they do. So it's really about how you react from failure, how you get up, how you keep working through it. Failure is part of life, and how we react to it and how we internalize it, that's what makes the difference. If you had to play a game without failure, only one team would have the ball the whole time, and nobody would want to watch that.
That is such a great
Yeah.
analogy. I love that so much. So, Tony, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you before. You know, I've watched so many interviews and read about you, experienced Life Did a Piece. I'm a lifetime member. You've done the tours, but there's this incredible level of self-awareness. Now that I'm sitting here, I'm a reader of energy, and I really love that. I'm curious, this level of introspection that you have. You're incredibly wise. Tell me a little bit about that personal side, the soul side. Like, do you have a personal practice? Do you do a daily checklist on yourself? Like, I'm curious, how do you continue to kind of connect, not with Tony Sanneh, the foundation leader, not the famous soccer player, but a soul, a human being?
Well, I have some really close friends, and as we're working on a book for me, like everybody has demons. So there's like these dark patches in your life or things that you need to work on. So it's definitely not perfect. My staff would probably look at me on a daily basis and say, where is this guy going? I do think a lot, which is hard for me because a lot of times, I like to be really inclusive. But I get an idea, I don't want to bother you. But I'm going to run it through every scenario I think I can for the next 2 months. And when I think I got some, I'm going to bring it to you. And then I'm going to be disappointed when you don't like it because I've already thought about everything, right? And I'm working really hard. So my brain is constantly moving. I'm very, I would say, introspective. I like people in general. I want people to be happy. So in those ways, I think I'm always thinking. And people in my office, I'm like, if you ask enough, you can wear. I'm the easiest person to wear down, right? Because I'll actually help find a way to get you what you want, even if I don't agree. I'm like, well, maybe if we do this, and so anything can happen. And we have a saying like, so my staff, please don't tell me no, just maybe say not now, and never say that can't be done. Say this could be done, but this is what you need to do, right? Like, you can't, go to Africa tomorrow unless you have $100,000 to buy a private jet, right? Okay, well, now I know the obstacle. And one day I might say, here you go, like, let's go.
I figured
right?
it out.
Let's go, right?
I figured it out. There is, you're a pragmatist. So one of the things that I read between the lines is that you're really good about taking advantage of the visibility. Clearly, we're here with the team, and we live in a world where social media and awareness of who you are. If you don't exist online, you don't exist, period. And Hall of Fame this year, congratulations. That has to be like just so incredibly fulfilling. I'm curious, how do you use all of these opportunities, working with the government, going around the world, being inducted in the Hall of Fame? I can't, you guys, I'm sitting with a Hall of Fame inductee. How do you balance that with using it for the good and the success of the foundation?
So something you said, taking advantage. I don't use those words. I say maximize opportunities.
I love
right?
that.
I think we maximize opportunities. Again, I had a very nice lunch today, and what makes you tick. And I think this is hard for my staff is like, I hate wasteful. And I said, if you had a goal to make $1 million at the gala and you made two, but somebody left a $10,000 check on the table, you'd be disappointed. I'd be, of course I would. Because when you make a goal to run a 2-minute or 2-hour marathon, and you run the first half in 45 minutes, you know you have the potential to run the second half in 45 minutes. So my goal changes along the way. So my perspective changes because I'm always trying to maximize my potential. And so I hate seeing talent wasted. I hate seeing opportunities wasted. And I know that in this world, when you understand how to leverage and maximize opportunities, whether it's relationships, right? relationships are the best way to maximize opportunities, because at the end of the day, people make you tick. And you could have all the social media in the world, but somebody's got to look at it at the other end, right? And our social capital is what we really use to maximize those opportunities. So, a lot of people, a lot of us don't necessarily trust what we see and know. We're influenced by others that we trust. So aligning ourselves with trusted figures, increases our social capital, which allows us to maximize those opportunities to get buy-in and build trust from the public who want to participate, and from funders, and from people that just want to be around because they see that it's a fun place. And, we don't say fun only like it's this big party, but let's say enjoyable, like creating enjoyment. And another thing I say a lot is the secret of life is making others around you feel good and do good. Your life's better, right? And if you imagine getting picked up from school after something's been bad, riding home in your parents' car and it's quiet, it's like the worst 30 minutes of your life. But I said to you now, imagine watching a movie at 10 years old with your friends, and people start to giggle. And then somebody else starts to laugh at that person's giggling.
And then you can't
right?
stop.
And pretty soon everyone's laughing. You're not laughing at the movie anymore. You're laughing because you're all enjoying each other.
Yes.
Like that's what like an environment is, where people just enjoy being around people. And so if you can create that environment wherever you are, then people will want to be around you in those spaces, and they're going to have a great time, and your life is going to be much better.
It's so true. Tony, you're a really good storyteller. When is that book coming out?
It's a work in progress. We're going to have to talk to the team. We're going to work on that.
I love that.
Yes.
Well, when it comes out, please let us know. We want to support it. I love listening to you speak. You are, not only are you incredibly competent in all the things you do, you're really interesting and engaging to talk to. So I love that. Do you think that traveling the world and being in the rooms where a lot of people don't have access to has made you just like a more, I don't want to say complete, but just kind of like interesting individual? I often find people who travel a lot, they have a different level of depth.
56 countries. I've been to 56 countries.
That's huge.
So yes, and when you say, in rooms that other people don't have access to, I've been in a lot of spaces that people, don't have access to, that seem cool. And at one point in my life, like I was doing things and posting them, not because I really cared, because, I used to go to the Super Bowl every year, but I was like, I'm like, I actually didn't like going to the game. So I'm like, I'm not going to go to the game just so I can post it on social media. Like I'd go for the parties for the week and then come home. But I think the rooms that I've been in that are the most impactful are, when I've been in Haiti, when I grew up in Africa, and visited my parents' family, when I go to the State Department and I work with other people, and really seeing people, I think it gives you perspective. I think you know what's important, and you learn to appreciate different things, right? And you learn to see the world differently. And I think it's a different kind of education, and it's not academic, but it's a real world education. And so I would like to think that I'm, use the term culturally competent, where I respect and value others regardless of where they come from, and love learning about who they are, why they believe what they believe in, and then I take it all in and make the decision on what works best for me. But when you're working with people, understanding their background or understanding who they are, why they think the way they do, makes it easier to make them happy, which in turn makes me happy.
It's so true. I love these little reframes that you're doing. Culturally competent, don't say take advantage. Like I'm taking note. Those are really beautiful and I think powerful reframes, because words have meaning. We're taking our kids. I'm really adamant about having my kids spend time with my mom, who barely speaks English, in a culture that they're not familiar with, because there is the level of, they're very privileged.
Yes.
They live such an incredible lives where they have never lacked for anything. And I was in a refugee camp when I was their age. So I think that having those experiences, it just builds character. It's really, really, it's different. It's a whole different level. I read. This is one thing that I did not know about you until recently, that you were a recipient of the Bush Foundation,
Yes.
the fellowship. And I'm going to read this because it kind of surprised me, and I want to ask you about it. You said that accepting it meant facing things that you have been avoiding for 30 years. A World Cup athlete, world renowned. What were you afraid of, and what were you running or scared, and what were you running away from?
You know, I think I've always been conflict averse in some situations. Um, and you know, as I was growing into a different leader, I think where I went to high school, it, it was almost like there was this education where everyone was academically smart, but it was almost like a fake sense of humbleness.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took a long time for me to say it was okay to be like, I'm good and I'm special. And I don't have to feel bad about it, right? It doesn't mean that I'm a bad person because I think I'm good at something.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that, you know, I understand how hard I work, right? And I deserve everything that I have. I think for a while I was worried that people were judging me because they thought things were given to me, that I was just an athlete that got lucky. I remember going to the Capitol and someone says, well, here's this good looking athlete coming in and just asking for money and think, you know, and I'm like, I've been at this Capitol every day for 120 days, walking the halls, waiting for people to come out of their office just so I could talk to them for 8 seconds to go somewhere. But you know what? By the end of that year, I made an impression on everybody in that building. They knew who we were. By year 3, they said, when are you going to stop? I'm like, I'm going to stop when the problems out there stop. And so they knew I wasn't going to give up. And I think they trusted me because of that. So to answer your question, I think I would think I was scared to accept like who I was and the real responsibility that I had. Um, and, you know, I think my mom said, you know, at one point she was also worried that we were worried that it was all going to get taken away.
Mm.
Right? You work so hard for this, and like, is it all going to get taken away?
That's a fear that I've heard people say very often. You achieve this level of success, you work so hard for it, very often not recognized as much because we don't understand. We celebrate the success, but I don't think we see the blood and sweat and tears that go into it. So in that moment when you know there's an identity shift
Right.
for you that occurred, that had to happen. Like, I work hard for it and I deserve it.
Yeah.
Like, do you have that fear anymore?
Um, I used to, like, people say, well, you have all this thing. What are you worried about? And it used to be, I'm like, worried about losing it. As I get older, I'm not worried about losing it. I know that I'm special regardless of where I am and what I have. I'm blessed to have a son now. My legacy doesn't have to be the Hall of Fame or how big the foundation is. My legacy will live on because I know that I've touched the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, right? And I know that whether they say it or not, like, a part of me is in them for forever. And so, you know, it's not a competition. And, you know, sometimes I look at people in my organization and I'm like, I'm not competing with you. But at Christmas, I'm going to go with my son and hold him in my arms when it's 10 degrees out and he's 12 months old, and we're going to wait and give food out to whoever comes. I'm better at my job than you are at yours because I don't have to decide between my family and my job because it's the same.
Mm.
There's nothing wrong with what you're doing. We're just different people. But let's not make it a competition because there's nothing wrong with how you want to live your life. So don't judge me because you don't want to do what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just one of these people that are lucky enough to love my job and I love my life. And so I hope everybody, and that's my advice to them, do what you love and don't be mad at others that are happy.
That's precisely it. I mean, that's a message for people in the world right now. Don't hate on others. Like, if you go figure it out, but bless others on their way. Talking about impact, you made an impact on my family, Tony, without even knowing. Like, there's so many families out there who have been, participants, and for me, those boys, in that picture, are gonna show it, walking and laughing and having so much fun. That was so meaningful. I was like, I'm like, what, a camp, a soccer camp that is absolutely free, available in the community. I was shocked because I was just walking with the kids, and that was an accident. So the impact that you have made in the life of our family has been significant. So I want you, I know you hear it, I know you see it, I know that you have the evidence of it, but I just want you to hear from me, because it matters.
Right.
Has there ever been a moment where something almost broke you, where it was really, really, really difficult? Because and I ask this because you seem to be the person who's like, I'll figure it out no matter what. But has there been a moment that really, really tested you?
Yeah, I mean, I was injured in soccer once for like a year, and I remember walking to practice, and when you're the highest paid person and the team is not doing well, and a couple hundred people come to your practice every day and start yelling at you for stealing money and saying get back on the field because they need you, and you can't literally, that was hard for me, because people made it personal. I had a time in the foundation where I had some staff that we really weren't aligned, and I questioned, like, do I really want this fight? Like, it wasn't fun anymore. Like, it wasn't about nothing. It wasn't about the kids or the families. It was about things that I didn't think were important. And then, you told me the story, and I see those kids laughing. And, one of my best friends came to help me and work with me, and his name was Eric. And so he ran the camps, and he actually ran the camp that your kids were at. And so he passed away like 2 years ago,
Oh my gosh.
in Brazil. And he was a free spirit, and but he came on as a partner, and he was my roommate for years, and he ran these camps and gave everything because he wanted to see me succeed. And at the end of the day, he got to do the stuff that I wanted to do because he ended up coaching so I could go do these other stuff. And he loved helping build something for me, right? He didn't care credit. And then he invested in businesses and made a lot of money. And then he traveled the world on his own, replicating what he was doing here with me. And he got sick and actually passed away in Brazil in his late 40s. But, that was really hard when you have someone really close like that. But seeing those pictures, makes me remind him of the spirit that he was, because he was a phenomenal individual. But those are hard days when you lose people that are close to you, and you're worried about, they're not replaceable, and you learn that you don't have to replace them, right? Things look different, and you have to keep the best in them with you, and keep going.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. You built 130,000 square foot dome, so kids could, play without needing to pay. You and I both know that took, like, we look at the dome, but that must have taken years of convincing, talking, coffees, lunches, conversations. It is, a million different pieces in where it could have fallen apart. So I'm really curious, what do people not understand about what it takes to build something like that?
One of my special moments was I was at the St. Paul Foundation. They were one of my early funders, and they gave me a speech when I opened the dome. They said, you know what we like about Tony? He goes, whatever he says he's going to do, he does. And so I remember I have a business plan in 2010. And I said I was going to build a soccer field and a dome, and it was going to cost $600,000. And I remember one funder looking at this and says, well, you have some great ideas in there, but no one's ever going to give you money to build a dome, right? So, 11 years later, to build a dome and a field that cost $10 million and get it done, right? So it takes belief, it takes perseverance, it takes consistency. I think if we hear no and move on, again, we didn't wake up every day and go and try to sell the dome. We didn't distract from the work, but we were going to just keep building until we were ready.
Mm-hmm.
But we never forgot about it, and we never gave up on it. So these things are very complicated. Again, maximizing everything. You know, I got 4.5 from a Republican-led, Senate at the time to help do it. I have the city of St. Paul give me a long-term lease for like $1 a year for a park. Delta Foundation gave me $2 million to help build the building, and many other funders. And then we had pro bono people and the vision and the board. So there's a lot that goes into it, but really it's why. It's like believing in something and what effect it's going to have on the community, and not letting people forget. I mean, I can ask you for $10. It's easy to say no. Mm-hmm. I can ask you if you want to let this child starve. It's a much harder conversation.
It's so true. Again, going back to you're a really good storyteller. So I heard you say trust, authenticity, but the thread that's coming through is this incredible level of perseverance and not taking no for an answer. So is that a soccer quality that translated, or is that just Tony personality?
So, not taking no. So there's a joke in it because there was a funder that I wanted to get money from, and I was like, well, I don't need that. Can I just have the money? And we kept going back, and my staff's like, they said no. I'm like, no, they didn't. No, they did. They just didn't say no. I'm like, exactly. I said, I don't want to start a controversy here, but the difference between a soccer player and a football player. A football player, an NFL player, if you ask them to jump, right, it's how high, right? Here's where to run, right? If you ask a soccer player, like, jump, they're going to say why, right? Right? So it's a different mentality when you say, like, the way that we think. I think if someone's going to say no, I'm going to say why.
You want to understand it.
I want to understand it because you might not understand it. And my job is to make you understand it. And so my job is to make that no to a maybe to a yes, or not no, yes. You can do that if you get the state to change the law. Okay.
Great.
Now I know what my goal is.
Now I know how to fix it. Right. Kids are really good at that. My kids are always when it's like, no, why? Yeah. Why? And they're master negotiators when it comes to that. It's actually really, really, really great. One of the things that I want to briefly touch on is you've said that you really wanted to impact and change in professional sports and the way that they sort of do business and interact with community in the world of philanthropy. What are they doing wrong right now? And I had a conversation with Brett Tabor, who does the giving for Minnesota Vikings, and I was really profoundly moved for a number of reasons. He seemed so genuine. Like it seemed that it was not performative. It was not just because we have to. He actually cared. Right. Minnesota sports, general, we seem to do well with that. But around the world and the rest of the country, I think things are falling through the cracks. I'm curious what your interpretation of it is.
Well, I think it's a both and. I think that the sports teams in Minnesota do a pretty good job, but I think they could do better. We have the best vending machine in the world. Have you ever seen a farmer's fridge vending machine?
No.
It's at the airport. You can get fresh salads in there, fresh vegetables, and we have one at our community center that's free to the public. If you go to the airport, it's like $16, and the Vikings keep it filled for us so that any kids in the community can come in and get a healthy salad or a healthy snack.
That's tremendous.
Through that. So we really appreciate that partnership with them. I think my rub with a lot of professional teams is that they use philanthropy as marketing, and so it's not. And so I think that the biggest, and the Twins are doing a program with us this year. It's called the At Bat program, where they're showcasing 5 nonprofits every quarter. The biggest strength of the professional teams is their visibility. So if they can share their visibility with you, That's the biggest thing they can do. And they should just write checks because let's be honest, like they can say they're losing money, but every one of them has a billionaire owner, right? So it's hard for me when some of them either use this to market because if you have a golf tournament and I have a golf tournament, the truth is the sponsors are going to go to your golf tournament because they want to be associated with the professional sports because that seems like harder, like social capital, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not as cause driven. So we want them to write checks and work really in partnerships with organizations and not compete with them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so the way that the Twins are elevating nonprofits and showcasing them and putting them in PSA so the rest of the world can see them, like that's super valuable. We can never get that kind of reach. Like we don't have the network that the Minnesota Twins have,
Mm-hmm.
but they're giving that to us through philanthropy. And so a lot of organizations use this, and it makes it really hard with the athletes. Like I have a lot of young men on the Minnesota United that will volunteer for me. And it's not their fault, but in all pro sports, there's a CBA which negotiates your player appearances for the team. So when a player finds out that the team is getting paid because XXX is sponsoring the visit to the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go visit kids in the hospital if the team is making money off of me.
Mm.
Now I become a bad person. Well, why is the team charging to do that? And so if they're getting paid, then I want to get paid. So next thing you know, the athletes are getting paid to do these things. It's not true philanthropy. When most of them want to do good things, they just want to do it grassroots. So I think that overall, it's changed. There's a lot of good apples out there and doing great stuff. But overall, I think philanthropy can't be a marketing tool.
Yeah.
And you hear so much, well, we're getting built up and then, instead of like, let's start with how we're going to partner with the community first and build our organization around that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. That's a very, very sound assessment. I'm curious, what can our listeners, our audience, people watching on the TV channels, what can we do to support you and the work that you're doing in the community?
You can write a check. You can tell people about us, right? The biggest thing is exposure. And you can support an organization in our community because as the community benefits, we all benefit. And so if we create this community of giving and sharing and helping each other out, we all do better. Share our message. We have a lot of volunteer opportunities. And I would say most of all, trust us with services. So if you have children, come. We have very low barrier entry. We have food that's free. We have programs that don't cost money. Trust us with your families. And, it's really hard to ask for help. And there's this stigmatism around it not being good and this or that. I was a Hall of Fame soccer player that started camps. And for years, like people thought that there was a catch because they were free. And I'm like, there's no catch, right? So trust us with your programming and tell people about us because it will help us build trust, and that's going to build sustainability and my legacy.
I love that.
Yeah.
You talk about your dad, the impact that he had on you, your mom, clearly. What do you want your son to know about you?
Well, I want my son to believe that, I loved him. I love him because I think that's very important. I want him to know that that you give back because it's the right thing to do. And yeah, I think I just want my son to know that I love him, and that I'll I'm going to be there for him, right? And that he's going to be okay. Yeah, that's a tough question. That's a tough question. So, yeah, I think I want him to know that it was important to me to work hard for others. I hope he knows the secret of life. And I hope he knows that part of my goal now is, listen, I can give him whatever he wants. The hard work is to make sure that whatever room that he walks in, he's going to be treated correctly. And that has nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
So I'm more concerned about the world around him than I am with him.
Yeah, I hear you. Tony, what does Rise to More mean to you?
I think that's it's synergistic to the belief. It's you can do more. Why underestimate yourself? There's no reason. You don't go to a party to have just a little bit of fun, right? Like give your all, do more, be more, expect more. Um, we all have superpowers, right? And like you said, the only thing that's stopping us is us, and we're not here to please other people. We're here to do what makes us happy.
Yeah, you're a good man, Tony Sanneh. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's
Yeah.
such an incredible pleasure. And I am just forever grateful that you took the time to talk to us. I admire you greatly. And this, again, you could have just gone into the sunset and rubbed shoulders with really important people, but you chose to change an entire community and the ripples of which we're going to have for generations to come. So thank you for that.
Thank you for the kind words, and thank you for highlighting stories of good in this community. I appreciate you.
It's such a pleasure. Well, folks, as you know, one of my favorite things in the world is to interview the greats, the people who really go against the odds and they give of themselves. They're the lights in this world. They are the antidote of all the chaos and negativity that we have in the world today, and which is precisely what I call you and I to step up to every single day. So today, the call to action is for all of us here in the state of Minnesota and around the world to become familiar with the Sanneh Foundation, the incredible, life-changing work that they're doing in their community, to support the work in any way that you can. And we're going to include all the links to the foundation and ways to get in touch with Tony and his team in the show notes. As always, thank you for being the lights of this world, for tuning in, for making this podcast great, because we have to make positivity louder than negativity. Until next time.